There's something in the economics literature called Wagner's law, which is the paradox you just described, which is why do you have some big government countries like Denmark, like France, that by world standards are relatively rich? And what a lot of people don't understand is, as we were just talking about, those countries became rich when government was very, very small. It wasn't until the mid 1960s that you actually had the big welfare states being adopted. Now, back in the 1930s and around that time, that's when governments put in things like pension systems. And so government went from being 10% of GDP to maybe 15 or 20% of GDP. But after World War II, all the way up into the mid 1960s, government in Western Europe, it was maybe at most 30% of GDP. Now, by today's standards, 30% of GDP in a rich country is considered having a small government. But in the mid 1960s, they started adopting these welfare states, mostly financed by value-added taxes being added on top of income taxes. And then guess what happened? Economic growth began to slow down. So there was a cost to adopting those welfare state policies. There was a cost to making government bigger and adding new taxes on top of the old taxes. But here's the key thing I try to tell people when I'm giving speeches around the world. If you want to copy Denmark and Germany and France and Sweden, go ahead. But make sure you copy them in the 1800s and early 1900s, because that's when they really became rich. And even again, as late as the mid 1960s, they had relatively modest sized governments. And when they adopted the big welfare states, then growth slowed down. So you have to make sure that, we have a saying in the United States, don't put the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
The cart is big government. Now, once the horse of private sector entrepreneurial growth, once the horse got strong enough, these politicians in places like Copenhagen and Berlin and Paris, they adopted these very big, expensive carts. And yes, their economies slowed down, but at least they were already rich countries. There's no way you can be a middle income country, adopt a European style welfare state, and ever become a rich country.